Hey, my friends, welcome back to another episode of the Everyday Boss podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Jayne, and today the amazing Ashlee is joining me. Ashlee is a breathwork and growth coach who empowers individuals to breathe new life into their personal and professional journeys. Ashlee is not just a coach, she's a transformative force, facilitating deep, impactful breathwork sessions that guide participants to uncover and release subconscious blocks holding them back. Her approach integrates powerful breathing techniques with growth focused coaching, enabling profound professional breakthroughs and fostering sustainable growth. Welcome to the podcast, Ashlee. I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. I'm excited for our conversation today. I'm always smiling whenever I'm talking to you, so it's
Oh,
always
thank
great.
you. I think
Yeah.
it's going to be a good one. We've had the joy of meeting in real life, which I didn't even realize was going to happen because we had connected virtually. I don't think I had put two and two together that you were relatively local. And then we were at a conference in January of 2024.
Yeah.
And I heard Jennifer Jayne from across the room, and I turned around and I'm like, "Who's yelling at me?" And I was like, "Oh my God, Ashlee!" Because we had
Yeah.
just met like a week or two before that. So
Yeah, it was wild. And we both thought each other was American.
yeah,
We were like, wait a
as
minute,
happens with being
you're
Canadian
Canadian?
entrepreneurs. Yeah, we automatically just assume everyone's American.
Yeah.
Which is funny because as a Canadian living in America, that was pretty standard for me. And then when I moved back to Canada, it just was like ingrained in my head that there aren't entrepreneurs in Canada, which is so silly because I was literally at a Canadian conference for women entrepreneurs, but we just hadn't had a conversation about it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
But we connected and we had a great day and conversations. And shout out to the social snippet girlies for the High Vibe Women Conference. It's a great space if you're Canadian to get involved and meet other cool entrepreneurs.
Cool
But yeah,
people that you end up staying in touch with and watching their businesses evolve and helping each other out. And I think that's what's super cool about it.
yeah, it's a great place for collaborations, which leads me to kind of the work we've continued to do. You've been a guest contributor to the Fempreneur Collective website and our articles there, talking about preventing burnout, talking about breathwork and the power of really like centering yourself and the work that you do. So let's talk about the work that you do. Tell us more about kind of what your business is and your role and your zone of genius.
My zone of genius. Yeah. So I'm a personal growth coach. I use breath work and coaching tools to help people actually fall in love with the life that they're working so hard at creating. I have met so many amazing entrepreneurs and humans actually in general that are working tirelessly to build a business, to have the life of their dreams, to build the family, to buy the house, like they're doing all the things and they're just like in autopilot.
Yeah.
They're not actually living. And my goal is to help them really enjoy their life, understand how to manage the stressful moments without the overwhelm, how to not get stuck in burnout, how to have deeper, more meaningful connections with their partners, their clients, their children, and make the most out of this life that they're living.
Yeah, I love that. There's a lot in what you just said that's in alignment with the way I try to operate and run my business. Part of my story is coming out of a toxic relationship, and I shared this in episode 1, and having to kind of start from scratch, but really viewing starting from scratch as a gift because I got to make very intentional and specific choices about how I wanted my core values to impact how I showed up. And then part of the work that I've developed is with the Fempreneur Collective is really the conversation of how we're women in business. So we have to honor our womanhood and who we are as humans in order to be the best version of the in business part, right? And what you do fits into that so beautifully.
Yeah, and it is. Everyone has a different experience. But what I have been noticing more and more as I talk to my clients, as I have conversations at networking events, while we are all living different lives and we're running different businesses, there are some core pain that so many of us are feeling. And part of it is I just want people to know that they're not alone in feeling that way. And they also don't have to stay stuck in feeling that way,
Mm-hmm.
right? It usually comes down to not enough time for all the things they want to do, dropping themselves to the bottom of the priority list, feeling pulled in a million different directions. I think a lot of entrepreneurs have big ideas and lots
Yeah.
of ideas bouncing around their heads. And it's that, like, what do I focus on? And then it's like comes down to financial security and freedom and always wondering, okay, is this it? Do I
Right.
have it? How
Yeah.
do I get more of it? What
Yeah.
do I do?
Well, so my business partner says often that money is the physical representation of safety, right?
Mm.
So for a lot of us as entrepreneurs, questioning whether or not we're going to have money or enough money in the course of a month really makes us feel unsafe. And it's not even something we really realize that that's what we're struggling with. It's just like stress and anxiety. But understanding that really allows us to make different choices, right? So,
Mhm.
where do you start with this work of like diving into what life looks like, where they should be putting their priorities? Because there's always things we can be doing, there's always things we can be busy doing inside of our business, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's the right thing or the actionable thing or the thing that's actually going to contribute to us being our version of successful. So, where do you start with this conversation?
Yeah, so I use a tool called the Life Inventory Assessment. And I kick off every single one of my coaching clients with this assessment. This assessment allows us, without guessing, there's like no second guessing, it is super clear, to help us identify which of your many life priorities are in alignment, thriving, like crushing it, and which isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And that for me is such an amazing tool because I can look at this map with my clients and we can say, okay, there is pain here. And while for me, for instance, my son is my number one priority. And yet it is not my number one focus right now in this phase of my life
Mm-hmm.
because we're thriving.
Right.
Like we're in a good spot. So I don't need to put all of my energy and attention and focus into that relationship right now because I've already done that.
Mm-hmm.
And now we're on like maintenance. What's going to move the dial the most for me is for me to focus on my business growth. And when I move the dial on my business, my work, my financial life is going to feel better. The stress and tension that I may be feeling in my relationship with my son or with my partner, that's going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
And that for me was a really interesting revelation of like, this is my number one priority, but it is not the thing that's going to move the dial.
Right.
And so that's what I actually do with my clients is help them see what's going to most move the dial right now. If you could focus on one thing that's going to have the biggest impact on your life, what's that one thing?
Yeah.
And that's where we start.
And I think that's such a beautiful thing because it's so true when you say your number one priority isn't always the thing that should be getting all of your energy, right?
Yeah.
Because your son being your number one priority makes sense. You're a mom, right? Motherhood comes first, and that's a big part of who you are as a human. But it's not, if you were to put all of your energy and effort into focusing all of your attention on your son, you'd probably feel a little smothered, a little, right? Like a little resistant to that. And that would put stress and strain on your relationship. But when you take care of yourself by taking care of your business, you're able to show up as a better mom because you're not stressed about finances, you're feeling lit up, you're feeling all of the passion that comes from doing your work. That makes so much sense to me.
Yeah. And for a lot of people, they need that extra set of eyes or the
Mm-hmm.
insight that comes from not looking at your own life. So when we start there, that's also how I can figure out what else is going on. It tends to be
Yeah.
and doing too much, but feeling like you're not doing enough. And we get ourselves caught in this cycle of, I got to give everywhere,
Mm-hmm.
and we forget to give to ourselves.
Yeah.
So, being a breathwork facilitator, I have the privilege of helping people with their nervous system regulation and helping them pour back into themselves. So, even if their business is where they're focusing, again, you can't really do that to your best effort if you were burnt out.
Yeah. Speaking just on the breathwork part for a
Mm-hmm.
second, I had my first in-person group breathwork experience. I was on a retreat in January, and we went into the forest with this incredible facilitator, and we sat around this giant bonfire in the middle of the day, and it was snowing, and it was like we were like in the middle of a snow globe, and the music she had playing was like absolutely incredible, and it was like literally magical.
Yeah.
Time stopped and I felt so like complete. Like that's the only word that really describes that experience for me, was like living in this moment of perfect completion and just being absolutely grounded and present. And it was incredible. And I've done virtual breathwork experiences, but I've never done in person, in group, in the forest, in the snow.
Yeah.
It was like this perfect combination of like this magical moment that will live forever rent free in my head.
Isn't it beautiful?
Yeah. So like how does breath work play into, kind of analyzing your life and creating space to focus on the right things?
Yeah. Okay, so I use breathwork in a variety of different ways. First and foremost, I think it is such an important tool for regulating our nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
We know that when we are stressed, our body goes into survival mode. Our brain, that's its job. It's keep
Yeah.
us safe. We can't be creative. We can't problem solve. We hear all the time that it's really hard to make decisions. And granted, we should all be feeling some stress throughout the day, throughout the week, like every now and then.
Yeah.
But you should
Normal
come
life.
down from it. Normal life, right? You're stuck in traffic. It's a bit stressful. But then you calm down and you come back to your like regular baseline.
Mm-hmm.
The challenge is that so many people have been so stressed for so long that their normal baseline is chronic stress.
Right.
And they're not sleeping. They're not moving. They're not eating well. It's just everything is a struggle.
Yeah.
And so when I hear people say like, I'm stuck, I know what I should do, I know what I need to do, but I can't do it. That to me is a sign of being stuck in chronic stress. So I use breath work and other tools to help regulate the nervous system and get you back down out of chronic stress, so that when I suggest to you meal planning or creating strategy for your social media or digging into your priorities, you're not instantly overwhelmed. You
Right.
have capacity now to hear me out.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. So I talked about my toxic relationship a little bit in episode 1. But I existed in such a place of chronic dysregulation, like to the point where that probably would have done me in if I'd stayed in that environment for even a couple more months. And it took me 6 months and even still 4 years later, like there's still just like little things that I'm untangling from that scenario. But like just the physical regulation of like I slept for probably 6 weeks, like most of the time, right? And like just finding my regulation again. And I didn't know about breath work. I think that probably would have been a tool that could have been really handy back then, but it wasn't something that I was aware of. But it is a tool that I have started tapping into, along with tapping, to do regulation techniques, to just manage life. Because being an entrepreneur, right, existing in this planet in the time that we do, that is enough stress to put most people under on a daily basis. Okay. But then you throw in partners, and you throw in family obligations and children, and then on top of that, little cherry on top that will just like snowball you, is entrepreneurship and being a business owner and being a leader, right? Because with with stepping into a business role, we step into a leadership role. That's enough to pretty much put everybody under the table. So
Yeah.
having tools like breathwork is really just a magical way of being intentional
Yeah.
to bring regulation.
Yeah, and I find it's one of those it's right there. You have access to it at all
Mm-hmm.
times.
It's
Right?
literally in
It,
like right below your nose.
it's right there. So creating space to reset. I love resetting with breath work, right? So even before hopping on a podcast interview, I want to pump myself up. I can speed up my breath, get the energy going. If I want to ground myself, I can breathe nice and slow, deep. There's there is a purpose for all sorts of different types of breath work. But I think the most important piece is to do it with consistency.
Mm-hmm.
And especially if you are feeling that chronic stress or that stuckness, breathwork actually does create that space. You said it like in the forest, it was like time stood still and you felt complete. I personally feel that way most times I do breathwork.
Amazing.
And it really is this beautiful space that I just create for myself, whether I'm doing it solo or I'm having somebody facilitate for me. And even when I'm facilitating my groups, I can see this this transformation happen for people of like they come in and they're like rushing, maybe they're a bit overwhelmed, and then by the end of it everyone's like, "Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. I feel so much better."
Yeah. I mean, and that was definitely the consensus from the collective. Part of this experience was we did the breath work, and then everyone but me jumped into a cold plunge in the middle of the forest, and it was like -degrees outside. And I was like, that is not for me, for multiple
Boundaries are
reasons.
good. Boundaries
Well,
are good.
there was also health considerations.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyways, but it was this really amazing experience for everyone. But like, to just and the kind of the consensus was like that was like so fueling and filling. Just that alone would have been worth, the ticket of the weekend that we paid for the retreat. But everyone else took it up a level and got in a bikini and jumped into ice water in the middle of Canadian winter. No,
Hey,
thank
listen,
you.
girl, I have an ice bath right outside my door, like outside my house.
That in my mind is a special kind of crazy, but props to you. Like have at it. There was a couple of women on this retreat that were regular cold plungers, and it was like a massive part of their self-care and how they took care of themselves as entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like it's something similar for you as well.
Yeah, and I think, listen, I'm not one to say like, here's exactly how you have to take care of yourself.
Right.
I don't believe that there's a one size fits all for anyone. What I do believe is that you have to take care of yourself.
100%.
So how you choose to pour into yourself, and I'm really loving this word nourish lately. It's like, how do you nourish yourself? How do you, as a business owner, take care of yourself so that you can continue showing up for your business? Because what I have seen in the work that I've done is when business owners burn out, your business most times can't sustain that.
Right.
Like, if you're not working, who is? And if your work is so important that you have to be doing so much of it and you burn out, then what?
Right.
So it's not that I don't care how you nourish yourself. I think there's some like really amazing tips and tools out there. Breathwork being one, cold plunging, movement, healthy food, talking in community, like surrounding yourself by others. You just need to pour into yourself and nourish yourself so that you are healthy and can sustain this business and this life that you're trying so hard to create.
Yeah, well, it's the fuel, right? Like when we talk about nourishment in a traditional sense, it's the fuel you're putting in your body, right? What nourishment are you giving your physical well-being? And then when we talk about it kind of more, ethereally around business, it's how you're fueling your spirit, right? And how you show up to stay in your zone of genius and show up, I'm going to say it, as an everyday boss, okay? Got to say the podcast name at least once. It's, it's how I roll. But that sustainability and creating longevity in our business. For most of us, we didn't sign up to be entrepreneurs because we were just looking to survive, a brief blip in time, right?
Yeah.
There's a bigger passion, purpose, and goal behind it. Some entrepreneurs are looking to build legacy businesses to like pass on to the next generations. They're
Mhm.
looking to break generational cycles of poverty from their business, and they're achieving these things, and it's so much bigger than just, oh yeah, it's COVID, so I'm gonna start a business, right? Some people started there and it's become so much more, but like to really to build for the future, to grow to the capacity so many of us dream of, we have to have the right foundation and we have to have the right fuel. So how do you create that sustainable nourishment, that's not just physical, for yourself to show up consistently in your business, and then how do you support other entrepreneurs to do the same? Like, let's talk strategy and
Strategy.
tactics. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, it's a couple of things. One, I do have a daily practice.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to find what was going to feel most nourishing for me and then do it with consistency. So my morning routine, where I am up, and I know a morning routine's not for everyone, but this is for me. Up before my family, I practice breath work at least 10 minutes every day, have that space to journal and reflect. And then I work in some movement. And I do all of that as that's almost like my fuel for my business day.
Mm-hmm.
Right? When I don't do that, I am heavier. Like I just feel slower. My brain is not as clear.
Yeah.
Okay. That is for me 100% the benefit. I do it and I am full of ideas. I have clarity. I can see my next steps. And then I have a coach. Like I work with someone. I believe that any coach who doesn't have a coach, I just don't buy it.
You're not wrong. You are not wrong.
Coaches need coaches.
Yeah.
And so I make sure that that's a part of my work is I have a coach. I check in with her. She holds me accountable. That accountability piece of what am I doing for me? What am I doing for my business? And really honing in on those needle movers.
Mm-hmm.
Because I could sit down at my desk and look at, I don't know, hundreds of emails, but that's actually not moving the needle today.
No.
It's not moving it.
Yeah.
So I am very strategic on what is moving the needle. And I do so with a clear mind, clear body, get that energy going. And then I rely on my community for support. Right? I think accountability is actually an amazing gift. So
Yeah.
I love when people hold me accountable for things I have committed to doing. I love being able to show up for other people that way as well. And then taking breaks. So I used to sit down at my desk, plow through the day. And it would be till my son came home that I would lift my head up and go, "Oh my goodness, it's 3:30."
Right. Where did the day go? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, what did
Yeah.
I even do? Now I don't ever ask myself, what did I even do today? Because I am very strategic on what are my needle movers, where am I spending my time, and then I'm taking breaks throughout the day.
Mm-hmm.
So getting up from my desk, not putting meetings back to back to back, taking that pause.
Guilty.
Yeah, I do that. But it is building that pause. I need the consistent reset,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the work I do when I'm holding space for other people.
Right.
It would be very easy for me to take on other people's limiting beliefs or stories or trauma. I need that space to decompress before I go into my next meeting
Right.
or before I start doing something for me.
A little reset moment. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I find that on the days where I back to back on like today, I'm much more drained than on the days where I have more calls, but I have gaps where I can breathe, go pee without feeling like I'm letting someone down by being 2 minutes late. I'm drinking enough water. There's actually a moment for me to eat something more than just like 2 tablespoons of last night's leftover pasta, right? Like actually having the bandwidth, literally time wise, to nourish my physical form so that I can continue to show up. There are days, however, where time constraints being what they are, limiting factors that just kind of dictate a few things,
Yeah.
we do have back to back calls. And
Yeah.
but even just giving yourself a moment in between to take a deep breath, kind of like ground yourself and regulate just for a moment can make such a huge difference. One of like, how there's those questions where people are like, what's the best advice anyone ever gave to you?
Yeah.
For me, it was the difference between reaction, which can be negative, and a response, which is usually positive, is a moment. It's a pause, right? There's a difference. So you react instantly, you respond with a breath, right? And so the difference between being able to react to situations or challenges in business or respond with intention to challenges and obstacles in business is intent and a moment to process. So whether that's a beat to take a breath in between calls or a quick breath work session or whatever it is that you're going to do, but just giving yourself the gift of a moment to really kind of like pull yourself together and then move forward. There's that old cliche, like how you leave one room is how you enter the next. And the same is true from task to task and conversation to conversation.
Yeah. And I find there's so much resistance from entrepreneurs. I'll say female entrepreneurs specifically, because when you're done work, there is a whole other part of your life that is knocking at the door.
Right. There's more work to be done. It's just not your business.
Exactly. Yeah. So we are constantly trying to maximize and be so efficient with our time that we do it at the sacrifice of our health and our clarity.
Mm-hmm.
But what I promise you is when you take a beat, you take a breath, you build in those pauses, you are actually being way more effective with your time than you would be if you put everything back to back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It seems counterintuitive because you're like, I will speak to people and they're like, I don't have time. I don't have 5 minutes. And my response is that the errors, the extra editing, the brain fog, the I don't know what to do next, wasted 5 minutes repeatedly can be found and saved by doing 5 minutes of breath work, doing a walk around your block, go outside and play with your dog for 5 minutes, drink water.
Yeah.
Right? Like all of these things that you do in 5 minutes will actually save you time. It won't be time wasted.
Yeah. Well, it's the difference between needing to take like a 2-hour nap because you're so tired or going outside and getting fresh air and taking like a 10-minute walk. I struggle this time of year because it is absolutely miserable outside and we're having like real Canadian winter this year for some reason.
It's full on Canadian winter.
Texas ruined me. This is really hard. This is like the most Canadian winter I've had in 15 years and it's literally hurting me on the inside.
Yes.
But it's also just making it challenging because my go-to regulation is getting outside.
Yeah.
And I'm annoyed by the fact that it takes me 3 minutes to put on boots and hats and scarves and coats, and I can't just walk out the door. Now, that will all go away mid-March/April when things start to warm up. And, well, don't ruin it for me. Don't ruin it for me. I'm believing for April. I'm manifesting spring in April. Okay.
Okay.
I need it. I need it. Or I just have to go to a different country where there's sand and beaches or at least the sun. I think honestly winter for me becomes more challenging. This year has been particularly gray and dreary, and I am a solar powered human, and I'm missing the sun. So what are some other practical ways we can regulate when we're solar powered humans and getting outside is challenging and we don't know about breath work maybe, or even where to start with breath work? What are some other ways we can nourish? Because like that nourishment is really what builds sustainability, right? Mm-hmm. So what are some other practical ways we can kind of like develop tools to be sustainable on our own until we can bring in extra support or, team members or coaches that do different things or breathwork specialists who take us through practices? What do we do?
Yeah. So I would start with your calendar, right?
Okay.
Even just start there. Building in, like being strategic with your time, right? I trust that if we're entrepreneurs, we're strategic. You know how to do this. So building your calendar with purpose.
Mm-hmm.
So taking a look at that calendar and saying, okay, where can I block time for breaks? It is not a waste of time. I'll say that a million times over. I don't
Yeah.
even care if you don't stop for a full hour long lunch or even a 30-minute lunch. Okay, but prep your lunch the night before, have it in the fridge so that in one of your breaks, you can go up there and grab it.
Yeah. It might seem silly, but for me, like some of my best days are days where I don't eat at my desk, right? Like, yay, I ate because that's not
Yeah.
always a everyday surety, but I ate downstairs and I took 20 minutes to read a novel or just
Yeah.
exist with my dogs or listen to the radio or music or whatever. And I'm not eating at my desk because it's so easy to just like,
Keep
type
going.
with one hand
Yep.
and kind of plow through your lunch with the other. And it's such a simple, silly little thing, but like I'm trying to push myself to be more consistent with not eating on the run,
Yes.
and just being, just present and actually enjoy my food for 10 minutes. Who
Yeah.
knew that could be such a hard thing? Holy crap.
And it really is. And so that's why I think you have to build it into your calendar,
Mm-hmm.
right? If you don't put it there, chances are you're just going to keep on working. So do your future self a favor and block the time and just create that. And then the other piece that I think is also nourishing is setting boundaries.
Mm-hmm.
Boundaries around for yourself, around
Yep.
what time you're going to start, what time you're going to finish, and put it away.
Yeah.
And then I even have like boundaries with my door. If my door is open, my kiddo knows he can come in. My
I
door
love
is
that.
closed, my kiddo knows do
I,
not enter.
I need to get one of those like recording lights outside my
Mm.
door, because my partner doesn't work Fridays and I do a lot of work on Fridays and I just
Yep.
need like a do not enter, or I just need my own office and not like a combo shared space.
Yeah.
Anyways, um, Lou, who was on the previous episode to you, we actually I did your interview and hers today, so it's like fresh in my mind. One of the boundaries she's put on her business that I think is really brilliant, especially from where I sit with ADHD and like resistance to like messages and dealing with like
Mm.
notifications, is she starts her day by responding to like notifications and she ends her day responding to notifications, and that's it. So
Yes.
it's the morning and the evening, and everything in between can wait 6 to 7 hours or overnight. Nothing is so pressing that like she has to be on her phone dealing with it in the spur of the moment,
Yeah.
which I think is really brilliant for me from a strategic aspect of not being distracted by things, and also not resent. I kind of get a little annoyed, a little frustrated sometimes that people are like intruding on my day, and I was like, I was getting shit done, and now I gotta like respond over here. And I think I just need like a code word maybe with my business partner to be like, if it's not emergency, like,
Yeah.
if it's really important to use a code word, I'll see that and I'll respond right away. I gotta come up with some creativity here, but like, because some things are important and need to be dealt with more readily, because we have a tech suite that we offer, and
Mhm.
clients that have real emergencies sometimes if their emails malfunctioning or whatever. That does need to be dealt with. But like most of the time, I would really love to just be like, I'm unavailable for 6 hours to just get stuff done and feel really purposeful. I have been working really hard to replace the word productive in my vocabulary and leaning into the word purposeful, because for me it's about undoing this perception of I'm only valuable if I'm producing something.
Yes. A
So I've been
lot of people have that.
Yeah, I've been
Today
undoing that for
conflict.
like 2 years, and it's a
Yeah.
challenge because I even still oh, I was really productive. No, I was purposeful today, because
Mhm.
the difference between being productive is like the obligation to achieve something and get
Yeah.
things done or check things off a list, whereas for me, recognizing that when I'm being purposeful, I'm having genuine conversations, I'm facilitating workshops, I'm leaning into my zone of genius and being very intentional about the work I'm doing, which allows me to be nourished and more sustainable.
Yeah. And there's so much good value in that. And a lot of that also has to do with mindset,
Mm-hmm.
right? Being and And so, you have your time, you can create some boundaries around your schedule and what you're going to allow or not allow to distract you. And then the other piece is your mindset,
Mm-hmm.
right? How often do we challenge the limiting beliefs or the voices in our head that are saying that's not good enough, you need to do more, you know, you can push through,
Yeah.
you don't need to sleep, right?
False.
False. You need to sleep. But there's so many limiting beliefs. And I think as a business owner, one of the things that I didn't realize was going to be how much owning a business showed me my limiting beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
And it continues to be a work in progress of challenging them, releasing them, and then the next one pops up. You're like, okay, now I have a new one to face.
Right.
Because they're in there. But when you let your limiting beliefs run your business,
Mm-hmm.
that is not purposeful, that is not sustainable, and that's likely going to drive you also into burnout.
Right. Yeah. Well, they're limiting. They're
Yeah.
literally putting a capacity on your capabilities, and I feel like as humans there are no limits except for the ones we impose on ourselves. Like there's so much that can be done and created, and like I mean, hell, people have been to the moon a couple million times at this point, right? So like if we can leave this planet with, some clever engineering and a lot of rocket fuel, then why aren't we, doing all of these other amazing things? Well, it's because we're putting limits on our own capacity through limiting beliefs, through thinking we don't have enough time, or we're not good enough, or we're not worthy, or we don't deserve success. And all of that is wrong. All of that's
All of
very,
that
very
is
wrong.
yeah. And you are worthy whether or not your business makes money, you are talented, you are loved. Like all of this work we're doing to almost like prove our value, prove that we are the best. You already are.
Yeah. It's
Right?
intrinsic, right? Like
It's
our
intrinsic.
value is intrinsic and not what we've been trained or taught or told to believe. And that really lines up with my philosophies around you are successful whether or not you have $1 million in the bank account. You are
Yeah.
successful whether or not you're serving hundreds of clients or thousands of clients or speaking to millions of people. You are successful when you identify what success looks like for you as a human individual, because it's different for every single person. And you know what success feels like because you can tap into that with a quick action or a simple decision. And that allows us to be nourished in those moments of recognizing like, oh no, this I am successful, right? For me, launching this podcast, I talked about doing this for 8 freaking years,
Love
right?
it.
So to finally tap into being like, you know what, this is the year that I'm just gonna stop saying someday. I did this in 2017 and achieved some really amazing things. I'm challenging myself in 2025 to stop saying someday again and just start executing things. I'm in a position where I have a team, so it's a little bit easier for me than it would have been, 6, 7 years ago. But also, like, I'm so tired of waiting to do shit and
Yeah.
making excuses. And AI, baby, oh, that's a game changer, and it makes so many more things accessible and easier to create.
Yeah.
Which I think is just such a fun way to like look at the world, is like, ooh, now we have so much more infinite capacity to create epic stuff because we can do it faster and more effectively.
Yeah. And just giving yourself permission, right? I think
Yes.
that's kind of what the I'm not waiting for someday anymore is giving yourself permission to realize that even if you do it and then decide to stop, that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Because you did it.
you
You did
did
it.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, just because you did something and it turns out you didn't actually enjoy it, right? I knew I liked podcasting because I've been on like 50 other
Yeah.
podcasts, like at least 50. I've been a guest multiple times. Now, hosting, very different vibe. We'll say that. But, I like a challenge and I have no issues talking to people. So for me, I was pretty sure this was going to be, totally chill. Where I might be challenged is the production piece of things, right? Creating all of the stuff that has to come with podcasts. That might be a little more challenging for me. Am I up for it? 100%.
Yeah.
But if in 6 months I'm not loving it, guess what? If it's not in alignment, that means it's not in my best path to achieve the success I want, and that means I'm going to let it go.
Yeah.
Do I think that's going to happen?
Not having
No.
attachment is key, and I think that's part of the mindset piece.
Yeah.
Right? If you had a perfectionist mindset and you're like, it's got to be perfect, I have to do this right. So many people don't start because they're like, I need to know how to do it perfectly before I start.
Yeah.
It's like, but you got to start.
Right. I have spent a lot of years saying done is better than perfect, and I'm applying it to my own life.
Yeah.
And this podcast. Do I have a fancy audio track that goes at the beginning of these first episodes? No. Will I have one eventually? Probably. I'll figure that out eventually. But you know, I have always approached kind of like doing things in business from a three-pronged approach, and it's a little funny to me because it's kind of backwards to what most people think you should be doing. But I get an idea, I figure out when I can accomplish the idea, and then I tell people about the idea. Because now I got to show up. Because like I really operate from a place of integrity. So if I say publicly out loud I'm doing a thing and I've told people, that's me like holding myself accountable, because I'm not gonna like drop that ball because like people are expecting me to. That might come from like people pleasing trauma, maybe, I don't know. But like it is a way that I hold myself accountable, because like I loudly and publicly told people in January that I was launching a podcast February 1st. And then I got really, really sick for 10 days where I didn't even work for 7, which is unheard of for me. And so, you know, I went from doing a podcast and I have all this time to like execute things and make it pretty, and to literally like I did it from a Tuesday to a Friday. I did all the things.
But you got it done.
But I got it done, and it's done. And that means it exists, which means I can make it better. Whereas if you don't actually pull the trigger on things, it never existed. It's only in your head, and you can't ever make it really better because you're only going to ever drive yourself crazy with not doing it and not doing it well enough. Yeah, which is not sustainable and not good for your soul. So stop it.
Yes, exactly. What she said.
Yeah, amazing. Well, Ashlee, I think this is a great place to wrap up. Where can people connect with you? What are you working on? What's happening in your business right now that everybody needs to know about before we wrap up for the day?
Yeah. Okay, so I have a couple of fun things going on. I host a Breathwork membership. So if you are somebody who's looking for that consistent space to be held and guided through breathwork, we meet 3 times a week. I lead breathwork. You get access to all the replays. It's a really, really cool club because you just get to be there and breathe. And,
amazing.
You know, camera on, camera off, it doesn't matter. It's just a space for you. And it's fun for me because I just get to constantly keep creating.
Mm-hmm.
And just seeing so many people showing up and prioritizing themselves is a gift. And then I've been doing life alignment sessions. So the piece that I talked about when I kick off all of my sessions with my one-on-one clients, I actually have a promo on right now that if anyone wants to do this life alignment to get really crystal clear on what is the priority that's going to have the biggest impact, I have a promo on right now for $225, so it's like over 50% off.
Amazing.
I shared a link with you, so you can just pop that in.
Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, and I would love to guide people, show them where their priorities are and how to make the biggest impact on their life and fulfillment.
Amazing. Well, I know you do amazing work, and I'm excited to learn more about what you're doing through these links and connect the community with the work that you do, and publish more articles because, you know, you're really good at that. So send more.
I love it. Okay.
Yeah, amazing. If you're curious about being a guest on the podcast, or you would like more information about contributing to the Fempreneur Collective, just reach out. I'm happy to share that information. In the meantime,